Welcome in, everyone. This is Jordan with Ravens Flash Report. And today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be breaking down my post game thoughts on the Ravens' 34-17 win over the Pittsburgh Steelers, who just lost to the Ravens in Baltimore on Saturday. So, this was the second game of the series. The Ravens lost the first game in Pittsburgh 16-18. Ravens win this one in much more dominant fashion. Honestly, it was just from the moment the game started, for the Ravens running game at least, it was just the Steelers were not ready for it. They could not handle Derrick Henry. And even for the two rushes that Justice Hill had, I'm glad he was able to get up and everything. It was a scary injury for him. But even for anyone basically running the ball, the Pittsburgh Steelers were not ready for it. They could not handle the Ravens run game at all in this matchup. So Ravens end up with 418 total yards of offense. 198 of that is coming from the passing game, 220 on the ground. So needless to say, there was a lot of running the ball. Derrick Henry ends the day with 24 rushes for 162 yards. He does not score, but he does average 6.8 yards per carry. So another phenomenal day from Derrick Henry. And again, getting that volume that we talked about earlier, where some games, again, the first time he faced off against the Steelers, didn't really get a lot of carries. It just kind of sort of felt like he wasn't really being utilized quite as much. But in the early going, it just as soon as the game started, 6 yards for Henry, 14 yards for Henry, 11 yards, was 13 right after that, 9. Basically, he was just, every time he got the ball, he was just punishing this Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line. And give credit where credit is due to the Ravens offensive line. We said going into this game that the offensive line for the Ravens would have to be better than it was at opening up gaps for the run game. They didn't do well against the Giants. They did horribly against the Philadelphia Eagles before the bye. But in this game, they definitely came in. They established, setting up their blocks, getting lanes open for Derrick Henry to run the ball. It was a much more dominant day for the Ravens offensive line. As far as passing goes, he made a couple of amazing throws. He made a couple of great throws. This was a down day for him. And I'm not saying that it was a bad game at all. He ends with 15 completions on 23 attempts for 207 yards, 13.8 yards per attempt, per catch. He had 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked once and a passer rating of 115.4. That's a good day. That is a good day. It is. But, again, we have become so used to the dominance that Lamar Jackson has and this was probably his best. I haven't looked at the numbers yet, but this was probably his best performance against the Steelers that he's had in his career. Lamar ends with 9 rushing attempts for 22 yards. I believe that's probably one of the lowest of the season for him. He also did have a fumble that got knocked out of his hands by Highsmith, who was not playing in the last matchup. But another player that was not playing in the last matchup that we discussed in the preview was Michael Pierce, who he came in and he actually had a sack on Russell Wilson. So that was excellent to see. Hill, like we mentioned earlier, Hill had 2 rushing attempts for 30 yards. His long went for 25. That's when he had to take a really big hit going out of bounds. It actually looked like he got knocked unconscious. He went limp. So it was a little scary, but he was able to walk off under his own power. When immediately entered concussion protocol, was out for the rest of the game. Zay Flowers, as far as receiving, leads the day. 5 receptions on 8 targets, 100 yards. Mark Andrews, 4 for 37 and a touchdown. Likely 3 for 3. Again, another great day from him. I don't know when they choose to use him, but it seems to work out. 29 yards and a touchdown. Derrick Henry actually had a couple of good receiving plays. He goes 2 for 2 for 27 yards, his long being a 16. Bateman goes 1 for 3 for 14 yards with 1 touchdown. One of the incompletions to Bateman was Lamar Jackson's interception, which, going back and looking at it, it does look like Bateman was expected to continue his route. Even so, I definitely feel like Lamar was pushing it a little bit too far to the right to get around Queen, who was right in his face. It's easy to sit here and say he shouldn't have thrown that. He should have thrown this instead, whatever. Zay Flowers was open in the end zone. From the angle that we can see from Lamar, I don't know how easy it would have been for him to either get the ball to Zay. But I also did see Tylan Wallace out to the right. We don't know the reads. So, but Lamar definitely pushed it and Bateman definitely quit on his route. But I would say that felt like the first true Lamar Jackson interception of the season, which four interceptions on the season, and that's his first one that's really his fault. Again, 100% his fault? No, but wasn't just ripped out of a guy's arms or off somebody else's hands. Let's go ahead and move into the Ravens kicking game. So, starting out, we're actually going to start with Jordan Stout and the punting team because his second punt of the game was probably his worst. I don't want to say ever because he's had a punt blocked before, but he shanked it. It goes 14 yards. Pittsburgh gets it at their own 44. And we are very lucky because that could have ended much worse than it did. That was the same drive that Russell Wilson tried to run it up the middle, and Barbarius Washington just came up and blasted him and knocked the ball out and gave us that the ball at the 4-yard line, which we then took the entire distance for Rashad Bateman's 14-yard touchdown. So, not so great with the punting, at least that one. The rest of the day, not any issues with punting from Jordan Stout, but Justin Tucker goes out there and nails the 51-yarder, looking like vintage Justin Tucker. Feels weird to say that, but I mean, he blasted that thing and it went dead center right down the middle between the uprights. And then obviously I think he had a 29-yarder. Was it 29-yarder or 23-yarder? Some extremely close distance for him. 23-yarder. It was a 23-yarder. So, yeah, but punt return, I did label that as sort of one of the things to look out for, or kickoff return, punt return, as something to be on the lookout for. Desmond King did return the punt, and it was looking really good right up until he fumbled it. We were lucky that Chris Board was able to fall on it, but still, yikes. As far as defense, Roquan Smith leads the day with 10 tackles. Really, really happy to see a couple of things on defense. First off, the defense absolutely balled out. I mean, when you're talking about the Steelers, where they're not top tier offense right now in the league, I don't even know what they are. But I think going into the game, they were ranked 11th. They're 11th, so they're averaging 24 points a game. Against us, the first time we held them to 18 and no touchdowns. In this game, they did have 2 touchdowns, but we held them to 17 points. So I'll take that. Pretty much for this offense, if you can hold a team to under 20 points, you got a pretty dang good shot of winning. So really happy with what the defense was able to do. But looking at the numbers specifically here, really happy for Kyle Van Noy. He got tackle for loss. He got 1.5 sacks. That puts him at 10.5 on the season. So the guy's never had 9.5 sacks. Now he's got 10.5. So excellent to see that Kyle Van Noy, especially because some of that has been coming on a little bit later on in the season. He had an incredibly hot start. He had those 3 games in a row with 2 sacks. So great to see that he's still producing later on in the season. He had kind of a dip in the middle part of the season, coming back from an injury. Seems like he's got his legs a little more fresh now. Really excited for that. Again, we talked about the sack by Michael Pierce earlier, so that was excellent to see. And just some really good stuff from a lot of people. Brandon Stevens got beat on a couple, and then had that really awesome tackle for loss on a 3rd down, I believe it was, later in the game. So that was just excellent to see. Nnamdi Madubuike ends up getting a half a sack on the Van Noy one, as well as getting 2 tackles for loss. So again, very active day by the middle of that defensive line for us, right? That's what we talked about. We needed to get pressure up the middle on Russell Wilson, and guys like Nnamdi Madubuike, guys like Travis Jones, who had kind of a quiet day or whatever, but Michael Pierce, he had a tackle for loss. He obviously got his sack, but pushing Wilson out to the side and giving guys like a Kyle Van Noy, like a Dafe Owe, who was, again, this close to getting that sack, chasing down Russell Wilson. But the real heroes of the defense on the day, if I had to give 3 guys their big gold stars, Kyle Hamilton is such a unit to have out there. He ends the day with 8 tackles, 5 solo tackles, 1 pass deflection, and 1 forced fumble. And he is just, every single hit that he puts on these guys like as soon as they catch the ball and they turn around and he's there, I'm like ready for them to be out of the game. He hits them so hard. It almost worries me that it's going to draw a flag in this day and age with the NFL because you can't hit people too hard. And even though all of his hits are clean, um, or most of them anyway, I mean he doesn't do anything dirty. It's just you think they're gonna throw a flag just based on how hard he hits them. But our Darius Washington, he gets another gold star. Again, he's just so solid, and him and Kyle Hamilton have solidified the middle of this defense and the back end of this defense. They keep things in front of them, and they just make plays on the guys with the ball. And I think sort of that simplifying of the defense has really helped. Not only has it helped the players, but it's helped Zach Orr as well. Because I think it takes the pressure off of him trying to be Mike McDonald and trying to come up with all these crazy ways of messing with the offense and trying to confuse them, giving them different looks. Like, I'm not saying that that's not Zach Orr's game, but it's not yet. And so I think letting guys simplify the game, simplifying what they're trying to do out there, simplifying their roles has really helped this defense. Just keep it in front of you and hit them. And obviously, I got to give a big shout out to the number one gold star, Marlon Humphrey, which, I mean, we're going to get into that whole sequence because that was just. That was a microcosm of the Ravens roller coaster of anxiety that we as fans go through for what feels like almost every game. Unless we're blowing a team out, it's a roller coaster. So he ends the day with three total tackles, two solo tackles, an interception, a pass deflection, and of course the touchdown. So he also, I mean, he had a couple plays where, I mean, he missed the tackle, I believe on Jaylen Warren. He did like a little spin move and got some extra yardage on him. But then there was another couple plays where he just laid the wood on these guys. And the way that he comes up to the line of scrimmage to make the tackle on some of these ball carriers, I mean, I can't tell. I have to see whether it's a 4 or a 1 in the first digit because I'm not sure if I'm seeing Kyle Hamilton or I'm seeing Marlon Humphrey. And for opposing offenses, that's got to be scary. Let's talk about the Steelers a little bit. Russell, he goes 22 for 33, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, sacked 3 times. Jaylen Warren actually leads the rushing for the Steelers. He ended up having 12 attempts, 48 yards. Najee Harris had 9 attempts for 42 yards. I was surprised it's 9 attempts. It felt like Harris actually ran the ball more than that. But Warren definitely looked very productive, at least, especially I think during like the second or third drive. He was really cutting us up there. And then Russell Wilson, 3 for 27. A lot of that came from that one long scramble that he did end up losing the ball on. As far as receiving, they're led by Calvin Austin. He had 4 receptions for 65 yards, which other than that one drive, again, he had 44 yards on that big play over Wiggins, which I can't believe he brought that in. I thought Wiggins, again, as Wiggins gets more experienced, as he gets, again, not that he's not used to being on an island, but on an NFL level, he needs to get his head around. He needs to try to locate the ball, which, again, the physical traits are there. We know that he's sticky in coverage. We know he's able to cover the guy, but getting that sense of when to turn your head around, because if these guys have late hands, you can't just simply react to the receiver every time. You got to have that sense of timing, but that comes with experience. I'm certainly not going to complain about Nate Wiggins at all, but Jaylen Warren actually comes in second with 5 receptions for 44 yards. And then it's honestly just little shots here and there. I mean, Van Jefferson, 3 for 27. Skoranek, who actually he was cutting us up early, but then he ended up leaving with an injury. He had 2 for 25. Mike Williams, 3 for 24. Freiermuth was absolutely silent today. 3 for 16. I think I remember one play going to him. Cordell Patterson, the play to Cordell Patterson over Malik Harrison. I thought Malik Harrison played it really well, given the matchup, given who we know Cordell Patterson is and his skill set. That's just a mismatch. That's a mismatch. You don't want that. I don't think Roquan Smith would have done any better with it. I think if you could have had anybody else on him that wasn't in a traditional sense like that, maybe you have someone like a Trenton Simpson who's just an athletic freak. But again, give Malik Harrison credit for being there. He got his hand up in the catch point. He got involved, but it was just a great catch and a great play by the Steelers to get that matchup, and good play by Patterson. But pretty much everybody else really kind of a nothing burger. Boswell, we kept him silent. He didn't have 6 field goals on us this time. He only had 1 for 51. Him and Tucker just kind of traded 51s there. But yeah, I mean, honestly, Patrick Queen ends up leading the day for them. 8 tackles, 4 solo, 1 pass deflection. Minka Fitzpatrick did have the 1 interception against Lamar, and 2 pass deflections. But honestly, I mean, TJ Watt ended the day with 4 tackles, 1 solo. Completely silent. Non-factor. Roger Rosengarten completely had his number all day, and I loved it. All right, so now we're going to get into the sequence of the roller coaster, we'll say, of emotions that was essentially the start of the fourth quarter, because the third quarter ended. The last play of the third quarter was a 3rd and 7 for the Steelers, and Jalen Warren gets a catch for 1 yard. He fumbles, but then immediately recovers it again, and then 4th and 6, Wilson goes back to pass, incomplete deep to Calvin Austin, which the fact that Calvin Austin on that play was looking for a flag is just absolutely ridiculous to me. You can see from the broadcast that Kyle Hamilton is coming up to make the catch here. He's not contacting Austin at all. He's clearly going for the ball, and as soon as they hit the deck, Austin comes up like this. Like, where's my flag? So, I don't know. I guess that comes from being in the room with Pickens. You just kind of learn that as a behavior. But anyway, incomplete pass. We start off, Derrick Henry, first play, 44 yards. Goes up the left side. You could hear, if you were watching on the TV, the fans in the bank were going absolutely ballistic. You could tell they wanted him to hit pay dirt. And he almost did. He got all the way down to the Pittsburgh 11-yard line. Very next play, Lamar throws an interception. It's the start of the fourth quarter. At the time, we're up 24-17, but we have seen this before. Right? This is, ladies and gentlemen, if you have watched a Ravens game before, you know how this moment feels. And it sucks because this is the beginning of the end for a lot of Ravens games. But no. Najee Harris gets a 3-yard rush. Great tackle by Brent Urban right there in the middle. And then Russell Wilson, he rolls out to the right. And Marlon Humphrey just reads it the whole way through. It wasn't a great pass by Wilson. He definitely was throwing behind his guy, but you could tell Marlon was going to go for that ball regardless. And he just jumps the route and just waltzes in. I am surprised he didn't get flagged for taunting because he 100% was turning around, showing the ball to whoever was running up behind him. I think it was Austin, actually, which that's kind of funny. But I'm surprised he didn't get a call because that seems like something that they would flag in this day and age. Credit to the Ravens, actually, speaking of penalties. They had 2 in this game. 2 penalties. Steelers had 5. Very quiet day from the refs. I don't know if it was just because they were bored or whatever, but they want to get through the game. I don't know. But 2 penalties. That entire sequence of events was probably like the epitome, I would say, nearly the epitome of the whole roller coaster thing that we go through as Ravens fans, because you see great plays. We make great plays, and then we make a mistake. And momentum is huge for the Ravens, I think, both in a positive and negative way. And that doesn't mean they're not mentally tough. It doesn't mean they can't get back in the saddle. But it does seem as though, and I could be wrong, I haven't looked at the stats on any of this or whatever, but it does seem that when it rains, it pours for the Ravens. And not sure what it is. Not sure if it's a psychological thing. Not sure if it's a coaching thing, right? Maybe we just need somebody that can get our guys and say, hey, stop the bleeding, get back on track. But a couple of times this season, I feel like a play by Marlon Humphrey or Ardarius Washington or somebody on the defense they'll make a play that just, boom, immediately gives us the momentum back. And that's what this was, because as soon as Marlon Humphrey picked that off, I mean, not only was it obviously from a scoring perspective, we went up by 2 scores there, but there's 13 minutes left in this game. And there's no reason to think that the Steelers couldn't go down and score, and then maybe the Ravens get stopped, and then we got a ball game again. But the Ravens did an excellent job at keeping their foot on the pedal. And I think that's something that's different about this Ravens offense and this Ravens team in general from the beginning of the season to now. And I think that's one of the most important things as we go into the postseason, that we see this Ravens team on offense and defense stay aggressive. Don't get complacent. There's no reason to be nice to these other teams. There's no reason to not put up 35 on the Giants because they're a bad team. Put up 34 points on the Pittsburgh Steelers because they're a bad team. Because Tomlin's lame. He's not lame, but there's no reason to not put up 34 points on the Steelers. Honestly, when they were 3rd and 1 and Henry didn't get it, and it's 4th and 1, go for it. I don't care. Go for it. Make it 38 to 17. Make them look bad. We crushed them in this game. They had 10 points in the second quarter. They had 1 touchdown in the third quarter, and that's it. We forced them to submit, and I'm really excited for this game on Christmas. I'm excited for us to face the Houston Texans, and I'm excited for the Steelers to face the Chiefs, because, I mean, honestly, if the Steelers lose, that's great for Baltimore. That's great for our chances of winning the division and getting a home playoff game. And that is the ultimate. That's the ultimate goal, I think, right now. I mean, it's not the ultimate goal, but that is the next achievable goal. Win the division, get the home playoff game, continue this momentum, continue putting your foot on their throat. Right? Let's hope that Justice Hill gets healthy. Let's hope that Aguilar gets healthy. Didn't really seem like anybody other than Hill got injured in this game. Excuse me. There was a second that it seemed like Marlon Humphrey got kind of shaken up, or he came out, but then immediately went back in, like 2 or 3 plays later. So, but yeah, excellent game. Excellent game. Great game by the defense. Obviously, great game by the offense. But yeah, I'm really happy with this game, and it's rare. If you've watched enough Ravens games, you know how rare it is to have a game where you feel comfortable for most of the game. Even when the game was tied at 17, I actually wasn't nervous, which feels weird, especially because, I mean, we're facing Pittsburgh, and again, historically, Lamar has not done well against them. Mark Andrews, this was the first game, and somebody correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about this, but this was the first game that Mark Andrews got a touchdown against the Steelers. Also, big shout out to Lamar Jackson, who now has, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but he now has 37 passing touchdowns on the season, which is not only a high for him, but that is a new franchise record, because the old franchise record was his 36 from 2019. So, yeah, 37 passing touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Pretty dang good, if you ask me. So, that's going to be it for me, guys. I am going to have the preview video up in the next couple of days for the Texans game. It's a quick turnaround for the team. It's a quick turnaround for people like me making videos and such. But go check out everybody else's channels as well. Let's live in this hype bubble of beating the Steelers. Let's intake as much Ravens content as we can over the next couple of days. Go watch, 410 Sports Talk. Go watch, all 22 films. Go watch Road Graders. But that's going to do it for me, guys. So if you like this post-game recap, if you like this style of video, then go ahead, give the video a like. If you are new, go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you see new videos when they come up. And yeah, go ahead, give me your comments down below. And as always, guys, stay safe out there. Go Ravens.